Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me again here at the JMC Music Academy in Tustin, California. Continuing on today in this video for our Level 1 certification program, we're going to talk about 4 notes per string and 4 fingers for those 4 notes. This is a technique that is something you can kind of continue to practice all through your guitar playing. One of the great advantages of this is that it really sets up some great dexterity in our left hand, but also the combination of the synchronicity between your right hand and your left hand. And so it's pretty important in that way. There are a number of ways to go about this as far as your picking hand, your right hand in this case. We can pick all the notes, we can use hammer-ons and pull-offs. For the dexterity part, or the extensive left hand feature of this, I would recommend, which is how I will demonstrate it today, I would recommend using the hammer-ons and the pull-offs. There are a couple of important things to say. Many times when people use material like this, they will play the 4 strings on a note, play the 4 notes on a string, and they'll leave their fingers down, which is what I just did in my left hand. So each one of my fingers is still touching, even though I've completed the 4 notes on that string. I sort of have an opposite approach to that, which many other instructors do also, and that's we want to leave no tension in our hand whatsoever. And anytime you have one finger down and another, there's a certain amount of tension because you're literally having to squeeze the whole 2 fingers down. If we look at it more like releasing it as soon as we're done, you can feel a feeling of floating on top of the string more so than if you leave them down. So let me give you a couple of examples here. Or just, you can do this anywhere on the neck, it really doesn't matter. In fact, I would recommend that you would do it in a couple of different places so you can get the feeling of different tension on the string in different places on the neck. So for right now, I guess I landed here at fret 8, so I'm in the 8th position. And I'm just going to play 4 notes on each string, but I'm going to let my hand float above the fingerboard. So as soon as I'm done with finger 1 and finger 2 hits, finger 1, it may not look like it comes off the fingerboard, but it will not be pushing the string down anymore. And the same can be said for each one of the following fingers. And here is that sound. This is all done with 1 downstroke on the 6th string. So there, of course, I transferred it to the 5th string, to the 4th string, etc. So we want to do it across all 6 strings. Let me go ahead and give you that demonstration. Okay, and we can come back the same way, and that would be maybe what you might refer to as a full rack. So let's go ahead and do that. I like to mention that it's not a good idea to try to do it that quickly at first. I'm just doing it to save some video time for you and value your time that it takes you to watch this video and get you more quickly into the practicing part of it instead of the video watching part of it. So that is fingers 1 through 4 in that direction at all times. And so even if I started up here, I'm still going from finger 1 through finger 4. And so that's one way to do it. I also wanted to point out in my right hand, if I'm up at the top here and I'm going to descend, those are all upstrokes, and again, just 1 per string. There's a few reasons that we do that. You could pick all the notes, but it's a different kind of approach, and it doesn't concentrate as much on your left hand strength, which is really what this is about. And it also doesn't concentrate, if you pick all the notes, it doesn't concentrate as much on that lifting up the fingers, but still keeping a fluid or legato sound. Legato means long notes, one of them running into another. Here it would be staccato. And here it is legato. So we've exhausted, say, maybe one way to do this, which is fingers 1 through 4, all the way up and all the way back. And you'll remember we define that as a rack. It's not a musical term, but it works in this circumstance. Another great way to go about doing this is to do this backwards. And this is definitely the harder one between the two. Let me explain a few things about this. I realize you probably recognize already what it's going to be, but I wanted to explain a couple of maybe finer points regarding it. So in the first exercise, we were able to press a note down, and as soon as we heard the next note, we could let it off, but still retain that legato sound. We want to achieve the same thing when going backwards, but it's going to be, it's going to be a little bit harder. And the reason for that is because if you're playing the notes 1 through 4, and you're lifting up notes behind you, you still are causing forward motion with the string, and that's not a problem really. But when you're doing it this way, if I'm going backwards, you can't let off any other fingers until you play the other note. So that can be a little bit more challenging for people to do. And one thing I really want to point out is, as crazy as it sounds, you're probably going to want to over muscle it, kind of over grip it. The lighter touch and the more relaxed you can keep your hand, the better your fingers will function in that way. So for this one, I definitely make the recommendation of maybe starting out a little bit more slowly. And I think that starting at the bottom of the exercise here and going backwards but moving across the board this way is probably the toughest. This is not quite as hard as it seems. And again, I'm playing it faster just to save video time for you. Really, the place that you want to put these, maybe even with a metronome, would be pretty slow. Something perhaps like this. So that's the backwards way of doing that, and there's some different benefits from your left-hand perspective that will come into play as a result of it. Now, a lot of people will call this chromatic scale or chromatic exercise, and I also want to point out that is really not the case. When we talk chromatically, we're talking about all 12 tones. And so if we start on A, since our alphabet starts on A in regular non-musical life. Starting on A, you would have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then the musical alphabet starts all over again. And so what I want to point out is, if we do it this way, we have A sharp, B, C, but we have no C sharp because we would go straight to D, right? So it's really not chromatic. For it to be chromatic, we have to have that other note in there. And if you really listen to what that sounds like, you can tell that truly is chromatic compared to the other exercise. So that's one thing to note. And inside of the scale lesson, inside of this lesson, there'll be a PDF document that shows 2 different fingerings for the chromatic scale. You can read those and take your time with those as well. That's also another great exercise. That's also great for the same type of things that we were talking about with this 4-note per string. And so that really clarifies the difference between the exercise itself and the chromatic scale. Both are beneficial, but I just like the terminology to be correct for you. The other thing I kind of wanted to mention before we close up this segment of our video lesson is that you also have an ability to maybe say play 1 string forward and the other string backward, or start backwards. And that's another great way to go about doing it. So, you know, in a way, you can never do enough of these. After playing guitar for as many years as I have, which is more than I care to admit, I still go back and do these because it's really about control and sort of the finite aspects of molding your technique to where you don't have any tension in your hand when you play. And it's really easy to get around on the fingerboard as a result of that. There's no tension in my hand when playing things like that, but much of that comes from this 4-note per string kind of exercise, or working with the chromatic scale and applying the same principles as we covered in this video. So that takes care of this segment for today's video lesson. Thanks again for taking part in the Level 1 certification here at JMC Academy. And again, my name is Gary Bruno. Stay tuned, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much.